Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing my review for Bleach Seasons 2 and 3. Because where Season 2 ended, I'm like, no. And I just powered through for Season 3, and I was happier with how that ended because it actually resolved the arc of them going to rescue Rukia. And I overall still enjoyed the series, but I kind of weakened further on, and I think I stopped at a good point because it almost has the reverse problem of Game of Thrones, whereas Game of Thrones kills off a lot of characters. It's just a lot of characters are introduced. With the 13 captains and everything, and their lieutenants, and everybody else at the Soul Society, and we get into these battles, and nobody dies. And it's like, God, the juggling of the cast gets really kind of intense. Because you have the core group that's going to rescue Rukia, and you get good character development out of them. But then you gotta take time out and develop all these other characters that are there, which they did a good job, but it's just like, you're taking too much time to go throughout these other characters that would be better spent just fully developing the core group of characters, I believe. Granted, I don't mind having other characters for back and forth and everything in funny situations. It created good drama with different kinds of people having different views and different kind of objectives and fighting over them to try and figure out what's going on, and also some good comedic effect. Still gotta say, they do a really good job of doing the tone of comedy and action in this. Very good job with it. I never felt that the comedy came out of nowhere and broke what was going on, broke tension or whatnot. Seeing Ichigo reunited with Rukia and all that, and doing all this stuff, and her getting pissed off at him, and him getting pissed off at her. He's like, I'm rescuing you, no matter what, screw that, alright? And her just be like, no, because she believes that she kind of deserves this punishment because of all this stuff, and we get all this backstory of a comrade that she had to kill, which ties into other characters that are introduced, and it kind of gets jumbled up, but it really develops her as someone who feels sorry for everything that has happened, feels personally responsible because she had to kill a Soul Reaper who was possessed by a Hollow, and that leads the family of the Soul Reaper to hold a grudge against her, and that it has really good character drama. It's just kind of diluted when all of these people are introduced, and the thing is, I'm interested in them, but it gets to the point where you can only scratch so much of the surface before you have to keep going on and everything. So the second season mainly continues with the invasion arc and getting our head around kind of the Soul Society and everybody figuring out ways to get in, dealing with the cat Yoroichi and all that kind of stuff. It's really well done because everybody kind of gets scattered. Ichigo is kind of on his own for a little bit, and everybody just trying to figure out what's going on. It was kind of aimless. I thought there would be better things to do with the Soul Reaper headquarters because it looks all the same. And I mean, yeah, that's used for comedic purposes, but it's okay, there could have been a lot more well done. Why is it feudal Japan? I understand that it's connected to feudal Japan, but is there a reason for that? I don't know if that's explored later on because there's so much done later on. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. Seeing people actually die in the Soul Society. How does that occur? What is the whole kind of, what happens then? Aren't you a spirit at that point? What happens if you die as a spirit? Are you obliterated? Are you turned into a Hollow then? Is a Hollow just the whole kind of cycle stuff? That kind of stuff is kind of not dealt with. I kind of wish more overarching stuff would have been dealt with. But if it's between that and character development, I would rather have character development. But see, the thing is, you can have such a thing as too much character development when you have too many characters overall. Because we get introduced to a lot of people. We get Renji back in, and we get a cool fight scene between Renji and Ichigo. And then we get Ichigo fighting so many other people, and another negative that I've got is the fights that happen are cool. I like them. But people are left in such a death state and recover so quickly, it's like, what the hell? And I'm granted, they're spirits, but they bleed, and I swear, Ichigo and Renji have bled enough blood to have, like, almost bled a person, essentially. And we see that, like, Ichigo had to recover from his battle with Renji, and then had to recover from his battle from one of the captains who he was able to defeat, barely having, like, time to train 10 days to understand and unlock his whole Soul Reaper powers, and then figure out how to get to captain level in 3 days. The timelines are just kind of whacked out. There is an explanation that is put forward because it deals with the whole mask and the holification process, because that was kind of cool. I'm like, oh, what's going on with this? Because at the end of the second season, Yoruichi, we find out, is a woman. That was a pretty good use to comedic effect and can transform between cat and woman form. And we get that Ichigo had challenged Rukia's brother, who is also a captain. And they're like, okay, I'll fight you. And then, of course, Yoruichi makes Ichigo pass out and like, give me 3 days. And they introduce a training scenario because evidently every captain, to be a captain, has to have a second form of their Zanpakuto, like the true form. Kind of like, oh, okay, your Zanpakuto is your Super Saiyan when it's like true form, and then it's like Super Saiyan 2. Granted, Dragon Ball is the best kind of thing that I've got for like a reference point for like these power-ups, but like they got the Bankai thing, and he's supposed to be able to learn it in 3 days, which people usually take 10 years to do. Which Renji evidently is close enough, comes in, trains with him, figures out his Bankai, fights the captain that Ichigo was going to fight, loses, but then of course, I like the action. I like the characters, but just stuff that starts getting into a point, it's just like, what? I don't have a problem with like accelerated certain training programs within reason. Like with Dragon Ball and the Hyperbolic Time Chamber and that kind of stuff. That makes sense because it actually defies the laws of physics and is a time chamber where you can train for a year in there and like a day has passed. Here though, it's like, okay, how is he able to get this far this fast? And then of course we see when he is going through this Bankai training, he is shown a kind of, I won't say negative, but opposite self. And we get more kind of like introduced with the hollow kind of process and mass that he's gone through. Because during his fight after he's unleashed his Bankai, which looks pretty cool, and I really like the concept of the Bankai, where everything's kind of different, he is low on his spirit energy and his kind of like hollow form takes over. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, what does this mean? And then we get this info dump kind of at the end of Season 3. What was introduced, God, there's a lot of this stuff, is that one of the captains was supposedly assassinated. Now, I kind of like that the whole captain kind of thing was introduced, kind of Game of Thronesy and everything. It just kind of felt like it took away from the invasion and trying to get Rukia out. But the whole reason Rukia was to be executed was to get this object out of her soul. Because Hats and Claws put it in her human form that she had to take to hide it, which would suck off and completely take out her Soul Reaper abilities, making her a human. Which is kind of a dick move on his part. But evidently, he was a former captain who was in the Research and Development Division and figured out a way to try and push back limits. So this captain who was assassinated faked his death and uses his blade to hypnotize people and control them. So that way he can get this object because it is related to this holification process that Ichigo has gone through to make you more powerful. Because this captain, Aizen, is saying that you can only get to certain heights through regular means. And to get through other means, you have to, like, turn into a hollow or whatnot to, like, break through those barriers. Which gives a plausible reason for why Ichigo gets so powerful so fast, But when it's used in this way, before we even know the rules, it seems like he has broken the rules before we're allowed to figure it out. And that's like my biggest kind of issue with it. It's an issue, but it's not that big. It did not completely destroy my enjoyment of the show. Because, of course, I keep referring back to Dragon Ball, but it's got a nice template of kind of like the powers kind of fitting within the kind of established rules. And then, of course, like making up new rules so that way new things can happen. It just is in a better organic way. Whereas with this, it was like, oh, okay, we learn that here how he's, like, why the hell is he breaking all these rules? Oh, this, like, some special chosen one kind of thing. When we've learned that the rules have been broken for a purpose. I wish it had been better conveyed. But it isn't a complete detriment to this show. It's just like, okay, and then the captain takes two of his other captains with the Hollows because they want to, like, kill the Soul King or something? Or God? Or they don't know if there's a God, but he wants to become God. It's kind of weird because this whole info dump starts coming out of nowhere, and concepts are just, like, thrown out at you, and it's like, there had to have been a better way to do this. You could have cut out some fight scenes, which I hate to say because they really do a good job on the fight scenes. They're really cool and seeing all different powers and everything, but I would rather have had an organic kind of way to get this information rather than just, here's my villainous monologue where I tell you everything. It's like, holy shit. That's a lot of stuff. It's new concepts for me. I don't know exactly what's going on. And then they escape and everything, and it's like, okay, everything's kind of back to normal. Nobody's died. And Rukia stays at the Soul Society, and Ichigo and everybody else go back to the human world and everything. And it's like, oh, okay, it's kind of wrapped up pretty good. Better than, like, the end of Season 2. And it's just so much that happens. I mean, if you're just, I would definitely recommend watching the first 3 seasons because they're pretty enjoyable and you'll get cool characters and cool kind of action scenes, but I would kind of stop there. And I say that because it kind of ends at a nice kind of point where you're like, okay, I'm good with it. Because I look forward, and especially with like the manga, that it goes kind of a Naruto route where it technically ends it, but then keeps going. I usually like more of certain things, but only if it adds to something. If you can do a nice kind of end cap to a series, you not have to like answer every question, but like just kind of have a good send off for it. It's better to do that than to like run it out where it goes like, sweet God, what has happened here? And I'm even kind of feeling that way with like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Super. It's like, okay, holy crap, where can we go from this? But I overall feel that like the end of Season 3 is kind of like the best point of Bleach to kind of like end, and I kind of see why they just have these, because otherwise it'd be like over 300 episodes, and you'd have to be like, alright, how many people are actually going to get through these? Only like the devoted hardcore, and if you're one of them, cool. I like this show, I would definitely recommend it to people. It's just, it gets a lot, and a lot heavier in like the end of Season 3. It's like, okay, I understand these concepts, I understand what's happening, we're okay. Because so many characters and so much kind of like crazy shit happens that it's like, okay, we reached a good endpoint, I'm good here. And I like the comedy, I liked what was happening with the characters, like seeing, you get emotion when you see Ichigo and Rukia reunite and everything, and then seeing them act the way they are, like student to pupil, even though the student has the kind of student-pupil thing with Ichigo and the master with Rukia, and kind of like being reversed and everything with Ichigo now kind of being a master and captain kind of thing, and then seeing him kind of like toss her to Renji to get her out of there. It was just like really funny, those kind of moments. And I just felt that like the other characters around Ichigo like with Chad, Uryu, or Hime, were kind of underserviced. They were done some stuff, and like expanded upon a little bit, but more of that stuff was reserved for like the new characters. I'm like, I kind of wanted more about them, kind of seeing where they're going. I wanted them kind of be more the focus than like the 26 new main character kind of people that we're now being introduced to. It's like, holy shit. That's kind of like my base kind of quibbles and kind of like negatives about it, but I overall feel really positive about this anime and would recommend at least watching the first 3 seasons and kind of seeing where you want to go from there if you want to be invested for the rest of it, or go more of the route of the manga, since that goes kind of a different direction than the anime. So those are my opinions on the seasons. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.